I am Rich Nesmith. I'm the law enforcement liaison for Linn County Sheriff's Office. Okay. Um, what I do can be kind of broken down into three areas. Anytime that I'm called out, which is usually how I engage with a client, is I'll get a call from dispatch or a call from a deputy. My first inclination, the first thing as I arrive on scene is to identify any safety concerns. So the first thing I do is make something safe as best I can. Normally, if I have an officer or a deputy with me, that a lot of that job falls into their responsibility. But I go through that same process as well. I'm looking at the house as I walk up. I'm looking at the things on the walls. I'm looking at how everything's arranged. I'm looking at bumper stickers on cars. I am trying to get a general sense of situational awareness before I walk into that client. Once I engage with a client, I'm looking now to figure out a way to de-escalate them. De-escalation techniques can vary dramatically, whether you're dealing with somebody with mental health or somebody that's got all of their faculties and is just upset. And so I use a variety of techniques to de-escalate. And then once I have somebody that is relatively de-escalated and willing to listen, I'm looking at providing them with resources. And again, that can vary with how we approach that, because everybody's got different needs, but I look at it under two categories. I either have an immediate response to provide resources, and that's somebody that is homeless, out in the cold, in need of food, in need of shelter. That falls into one category. And then there's the more long-term approach for resources, which now I'm looking to partner with the community and utilize Access Center. And so every call that I go out on, and I get called out by dispatch sending me, by other agencies calling me asking for assistance, or telephone calls from cards that I've handed out to clients. So any one of those three will send me on an actual call or a dispatch, and then I kind of run through those three processes. I do partner with police departments around Linn County. So Mount Vernon, Lisbon, Hiawatha, and Robbins are all part of what you would call my jurisdiction or my area of responsibility. So I receive calls from all of them. The only time I am really in Cedar Rapids to assist is if it's a civil thing where they're doing an eviction, and it tends to be what they would call a high-risk eviction, and I will go out with deputies at that time to assist. And frankly, my job at that point is to keep people away from the officers while they do their job. It's much like the suicide that you're going to learn about. The other one is we have a unique role where we're trying to calm people down, de-escalate, but we're also keeping them away from law enforcement, and that's part of that partnership that we do. So with that, like I said, I do teach classes on all three of those aspects. How to make someone safe. I teach programs throughout the community, work like Linn County Treasurer's Office, Linn County Public Health, some of the partnerships like Tanager, Four Oaks, people that send, or companies that send people into situations, into someone else's home. There's a degree of safety that they have to have. And so I do teach on what to look for. And that's how to prepare yourself, how to walk up to a home, what to look for on the outside of the home, and what to look for the inside of the home. Not only are you making yourself safe when you do that, but it's also giving you situational awareness and a little bit of insight into the person that you're talking to. And for example, just for the hyperbole, if you're walking up to a place and somebody's got Trump flags and bumper stickers, on their car, it's going to be a much different approach if it's bumper stickers say save the whales and there's lots of flowers on the outside. It's a different approach. I teach the situational awareness, but I also teach that, hey, when you're trying to de-escalate somebody, you have to have a little bit of insight into who this person is, because things that will calm one person will upset another, and subjects to stay away from, techniques to use. Also talk about the different techniques for dealing with somebody that does have significant mental health issues or intellectual disabilities. Something like autism. To de-escalate somebody with autism is a far different cry from trying to de-escalate somebody that's just angry because they have to pay a bill that they don't want to pay. So again, community outreach, I'm teaching classes on that sort of thing. And then obviously resources, that is probably the largest area, the most difficult to learn, and the one with the most moving parts. Like I said, there's the immediate ones, and that's you're dealing really with a homeless population at that time, or somebody that's a victim of abuse, or someone that is food insecure. So those are what I call my immediate resources, and I jump out into where I can get somebody a hot meal right now, or where I can get somebody a coat right now, to take care of those immediate needs. The longer term stuff, I'm an advocate of. I refer to people to Heritage for aging. I refer people to the Access Center, Abbey Center, and those type community providers. One thing that I have to be very familiar with is I need to know where the detox units are and who's willing to accept somebody at all hours. There's a big difference between detoxing in the ER, which requires somebody to show symptoms when they're there, and detoxing someone that has just decided they want to quit and they know that it's coming. So your private facilities will take those individuals, where the ERs will only take somebody that is actively going through the pains of a detox. And then obviously handing off to substance abuse treatment facilities. As you guys probably know, they range anywhere from the outpatient programs, which have somebody call in and talk to people, all the way to inpatient for 6 months, depending on the severity and what's available. So pretty good knowledge of that is what's required. So that's what I do on the calls. My primary area of responsibility is to deal with Linn County Sheriff. They're my only customer. I do work for Foundation too, but my sole customer is Linn County Sheriff, and I go out where they need me. And that obviously takes many forms. Usually it's in the form of a dispatch. A lot of times it's in the form of phone calls. So if you look at the entire county, if you go up to the northeast, you got Prairieburg, all the way to the west out and towards the Troy Mills, down to Coggin and over into the Mount Vernon area. So I work normal business hours for the most part, 8:30 to 4:30, and I'm available for those calls. The time the most calls come in is starting in the afternoon about 3 until about 10 o'clock at night. And it seems like it doesn't make sense to me to work outside of those hours. However, most of the time when you're dealing with somebody with immediate needs, you need to be able to talk to the providers, and they're usually working on a 8 to 5 schedule. So working the hours that I do gives me the ability to access those services at their open times. After times, I'm available on my phone to deputies for the more severe calls. If we have a suicide, I'll go out at pretty much any time to provide services. If they find, a homeless person with kids and they have nothing to eat, no place to go, I'll dispatch out in the middle of the night to do that. But that's usually a phone call to my personal number. And usually deputies are on scene, or area ambulance will be on scene at that time anyway. So that's it. I try to keep it at 40 hours as much as I can, but it doesn't always work that way. For example, today I'm not even working. I came in to do this, and I'm making a few phone calls to a few folks while I'm here doing the morning stuff, trying to clear that off the schedule and provide resources. And then I make that time up elsewhere. So the LE program in itself is growing very rapidly. 3 years ago, we started with 1 in the PD, and we're up to 6 now. We just hired for Dubuque. So we've got LEs. Right now, we've got 2 at the PD in Cedar Rapids, 1 at Linn County Sheriff, 1 at Benton County Sheriff, and 1 in Dubuque. The cities of Hiawatha and Mount Vernon are looking at hiring an LE to support their police departments. So as this program is growing, which it is, we're also expanding into other counties and throughout the Eastern region, which is, again, continuing to grow. Foundation 2 is in the process right now of hiring a manager of the LE program and the Access Center. So they're hiring an additional staff to oversee all the LE positions and the Access Center. And that should be on board within the coming weeks. I believe they're making the selection this week for that person. So the interviews have already happened. And that's going to change the nature of it. As I said, when we started out, when you have 1, It's easy to build your processes when you have 6 or 7. Now you're building processes that are sustainable with influx of new people. That provides training programs. It provides guidance as the program builds. It's obviously got to have a little bit of staying power in order to be successful. Iowa City hired theirs LE. We're doing all the training here for most of the LEs in the area. So they ride around with me for a while. They'll spend some time at the PD and get a little bit of time up in Benton County as well, but it's quite a training program at this point. So 6 on board now and growing rapidly. There'll be 7 on board here within probably the week. So that's who we are. It's the job title. That's what I do in a nutshell. Obviously, I skipped over a lot of the details, but that's a summary of it. Are there any questions for me on what I do, how I do it, and why we're doing it? Nothing.
Can you talk about how you could ever be brought into like a school?
I'm in schools all the time. Linn County, we have a lot of schools that do not have resource officers in. So throughout, I guess, the entire program, I've been called out there several ways. One is it's over dispatch because there's something big going on at the school, or a principal will give me a call and let me know that they're having issues, or one of the counselors will give me a call and give me and set up a time for me to talk to a student. So I have been in all the schools in Linn County. I go to every one of them just to introduce myself. And I have a working relationship with all of the school counselors. They see me. I know it's a stretch here. I'm not a resource officer, but I'm used like a resource officer in a lot of the schools that don't have them. Kelly Hughes is a resource officer, but she's spread among 10 schools. There's resources officers down in Mount Vernon and Lisbon. Gecky's his name, but he does patrol most of the day. He just responds to those resource officer calls. But most of the clients that are referred to us are referred to them by the school counselors, the school principal, or by dispatch.
And with the